the minority today carried out their threat, their Occupy BoG threat. Did they actually occupy BoG? Well, not quite. What happened in the end was that they sent a delegation, a few leaders with a petition to present to the BoG governor. Well, when they got there, they met the head of security at the BoG, not the governor himself, not his two deputies, the head of security. Well, they claimed they were very, very insulted. They felt insulted, and so they didn't present the petition. But what really was in this petition, and what really is the story behind this BoG subject, which the minority has obviously in the last few weeks been campaigning about, demanding the resignation of the BoG boss. So let's drill down to the real issues. I'm pretty sure you follow the protest already and the controversy surrounding it. So let's drill down to the real issues that the minority had been talking about. Now, if you look at the BoG profit and loss story, it's where the issue comes to light, and that's where the minority has been focusing quite heavily. Because if you track from 2017, for example, yes, they had a loss of 1.6 billion. Yes, if you come to 2018, they had a loss of 793 million. And then if you come to 2019, they had a profit of 1.6 billion. And so this is pretty good. I mean, look at the protest there on the ground. If you come to billion as well. So again, this was good. So 2019 to 2020, the picture wasn't that bad. But then you come to 2021, again, you have a very sweet story of 1.4 billion. But then, this is the big hole, the big black hole of 2022 of 6.8 billion, which is really what triggered this whole conversation around the BoG and the governor and the deputies when we saw the published audited accounts of the BoG. And because, of course, if you compare to everything I've said here, even the time when they've done a loss, it is simply not comparable. And that then tells us this is historic in a sense. But for those who, and the Bank of Ghana itself, they say, well, you have to put in the context of the unprecedented challenge that the global economy was facing, and that possibly explains this. But if you look at the BoG's own position of this, and you look at the statement that we've been looking at over the time, they have, if you look at the net situation, we're looking at that, right, over the period, you have a 4.5 billion profit, right? And if against what we now see of the losses under Ernest Addison, remember that's this main subject here. He's a man under pressure. If you do that netting of under him since 2017 to date, under his leadership, 2017 to 2022, you have the story of 58.7 billion net loss. Okay, so is this enough then to justify the minority's call for him to resign or be sacked? You make up your own mind about this, but strictly under his tenure, this is what you get if you're doing the net of what we have. Okay, but then you have the IMF program. And if you look at the IMF program and the subject of zero financing of the government, they over the years, when the IMF was wielding a cane over us, have kept within the zero finance central bank financing policy very strictly. So in 2017, it was yes, both the IMF program was there, and as you see, they kept to that particular range. 2018, the story was the same. If you go to 2019, again, you have the same story of keeping very disciplined, keeping to the zero central bank financing of the government. And then 2020, IMF is no more, and we again began to be disciplined. And this is where the problem began to pile up. And then you go to 2021, IMF wasn't there, but again we kept our discipline there. And then you come to 2022, and of course in the firm grips of COVID, and that, by the way, has been the explanation by the government and the World Bank itself, triggered the situation where they have to, government was excessively borrowing from the Bank of Ghana beyond what they're supposed to, and the minority has said without going to Parliament to satisfy the legal requirements. If we come to 2023, we are in a situation where the IMF is there, as you see, and we are having zero financing because there have been a lot of cuts and on the back of the crisis that we are facing. So clearly, it's possible. It's possible to do when an IMF is there. And many say, if you look at what I've just been painting, this is a creation of the governor and the current management of the Bank of Ghana, and they deserve to go. I've talked about the net loss situation under his tenure. Is that enough, for example? And now you look at the situation with the fiscal position at the Bank of Ghana as we speak, and that is a subject that we've been breaking down, like the government's exposure, right, to the Bank of Ghana and the overborrowing that has happened over time. Total government deposits with the bank is currently at if you look at the time, cumulatively of 17.8 billion. But the total overall claims on government is at 91.9 billion. That tells you a story, immediately of a situation that needs definitely to be dealt with. A net there of 74.1 billion. That is how much debt government was in with the central bank, and that, of course, has contributed significantly to the situation. But the conversation then has to be, what could the Bank of Ghana governor do when you have a government in crisis and the Bank of Ghana had to stand in the gap, which is what the Bank of Ghana had said? They were left very, very exposed indeed. And accumulated over time, you see the exposure increasing and increasing and increasing to what we saw there in 26.6 billion. And you see the biggest jump between the June of 2022 to September of 2022 there of some 10 billion. And that tells you a story, right? The government overdraft was one of the key challenges that has led to this black hole on the books of the BoG, which of course has put the central bank governor under some significant pressure. And the Bank of Ghana has said emphatically that when it comes to providing financing for the government every year, it says that is simply not true. There has been zero financing in 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2021. What we did was to take one of the years just to check this. And if you look at the 2021 picture, in 2020, you have 66.7 billion as the BoG's bonds and securities. Two ways in which government, the BoG obviously lends the government through the bonds, but also, as you will see, also through loans and advancements. And if you do the combination there of 2020 and 2022, look at 2021, 70 billion for the bond securities and 17 billion for the BoG loans. You are somewhere around 2021 of 3.3 billion in terms of the difference there, right? So what accounts for this? Because then you begin to see that there may have been some financing there. And the BoG, of course, always have a lot of questions. We've invited them to have a conversation with us, but they haven't yet. My guests are joining me for a conversation tonight on this. We wanted to drill down first, and then we'll ask the minority to also join in. Mama Yariga has already written to the BoG and has told the BoG that, listen, I'm taking you to the special prosecutor. Has that been done formally yet? Because the minority is going beyond this protest, right, to challenging the status quo a bit and getting the Bank of Ghana governor held accountable. Also, we join my banking consultant, Nanotu Champon, with some thoughts on this matter. Also, you please want to stay with me for this conversation, drilling down to the real issues that had led to the protest, which we've all seen the whole day after this.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to demonstrate to you the superior properties of Flamingo paint. As compared to other paint brands on the market, we take equal quantities of Flamingo paint and this ordinary paint. We then dilute them with water. And now, let the test begin. The gentleman on the left is going to apply the ordinary paint, and the gentleman on my right will use the Flamingo superior paint. As you can clearly see, Flamingo has the obvious better hiding. Furthermore, Flamingo has painted a much larger area. You know, one bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint is made with superior formulation to give superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
Daddy, this tank is big.
Yes, that's true.
It can store a lot of water.
That's so true.
Wow, it has a working tortoise on it.
That's so true.
I can see Sintex. Sintex.
That is so true, my daughter.
When it falls down, it will spoil. Oh.
That's not true.
But why?
Hey! Syntex was the first to introduce double-layer tanks in Ghana. Syntex again was the first to introduce white inner layers in Ghana. Syntex gives you the biggest warranty, 7 years. No matter your water needs, Syntex is the answer. Syntex tank. Are you strong? Are you tough?
Hello, my name is Abeku Agri Santana. If there's anything that makes my life so easy, it is my bank. I love hanging out with my boys at our usual fufu joint. But even without cash, we still dey chop better with EcoBank Mobile. No matter the time of day, my bank helps me stay in touch with my beautiful wife whenever she's away. And when my beautiful wife is in town, she never misses out on her favorite TV shows because I'm able to pay up all my TV subscriptions from the comfort of my mobile phone. Whenever she has to get groceries too, my bank makes it cashless and convenient. And the part my wife loves the most is when my bank makes it possible and easy for her to shop from any part of the world without moving.
Welcome to the smart world of EcoBank. Download EcoBank Mobile from Google Play Store or the App Store and discover the smart way to bank. EcoBank, the Pan-African Bank.
Daddy, this tank is big.
Yes, that's true.
It can store a lot of water.
That's so true.
Wow, it has a working tortoise on it.
That's so true.
I can see Sintex. Sintex.
That is so true, my daughter.
When it falls down, it will spoil. Oh.
That's not true.
But why?
Hey! Syntex was the first to introduce double-layer tanks in Ghana. Syntex again was the first to introduce white inner layers in Ghana. Syntex gives you the biggest warranty, 7 years. No matter your water needs, Syntex is the answer. Syntex tank. Are you strong? Are you tough?
Can he tee up someone in red? And it goes towards...
That's who goal is for. What 5 Champions League? You want to know? I be the real goat. Sam, I'm the real goat. The left magician. Who is the goat? Ghana Jollof or Nigerian Jollof?
Ghana Jollof has no co-equal. The smell alone. Oh my God.
No, that shit. You two they lie, eh? Now the same stew when they use cook the rice and then they go put them for top.
You are lying. Ghana Jollof.
I do this here. Forget everybody. Yeah. My guy. Put your papa in the jar. Put some respect on the goat. On the goat. The only goat I know lives in Tama. Every year we dey give to you back to back. We are talking about BET. I want some Yaji face. Except be the goat. Huh? My guy, him be the goat.
Though our choice of goats may differ in football, music, and jollof, Alomo Bitters always brings us together. Alomo, experience greatness in every moment.
Drink responsibly. Not for sale to persons under 18 and recommended to pregnant women. This advert is FDA approved.
Owning a home is an accomplishment. When it comes to choosing our preference of living, we are faced with a dilemma. Will you go for affordability, comfort, or luxury?
Well, we will help you choose your preferred home at a very affordable and convenient way at the 2023 edition of the Republic Bank Love Affirmed Habitat Fair, slated for Friday, 6 October to Sunday, 8th October 2023 at the Kumasi City Mall, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. each day.
This event is brought to you by your superstation, Love 99.5 FM, in partnership with Republic Bank.
Powered by Airport City HDG Homes. And sponsored by DBS Industries Limited, Syntex Tank, the ultimate protection plus insurance product from Star Life Assurance, Safety and Home Solutions, supported by
And thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. And as you know, PM Express is always brought to you by Syntex Tanks. It is strong, it is tough. Alomo Bitters, experience greatness in every moment. And Ghana AIDS Commission as well. And no matter your water needs, Syntex Tanks has it all. Syntex Tanks is first to introduce the double-layer tank. And now you can have as many layers as you want. Syntex Tanks is first to introduce white inner tank white inner layer tanks in Ghana, and we now introduce to you the customer specs order. We'll let you order any color and size of preference. Syntex tanks gives you the longest warranty of 7 years, which no other tank gives you in Ghana. So whatever your water consumption, size of project, or demand, choose Syntex tanks. We have agents nationwide. Call them on 0244-335-168 or shop online at syntexgh.com. A strong, a tough. My guest now, Dr. Richmond Otiahene, is a banking consultant. Will join us pretty shortly. Mahama Yariga is lawyer for BoG Central. And then to a champion. He's a banking consultant and joins us right now. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time here on PM Express. Ms. Yariga, let me start with you. Objective achieved after today's protest? Please unmute for me, Ms. Ayaga. By the way, he's the MP for BoG Central. Hopefully we can hear him. Ms. Ayaga, if you can unmute. Okay, by the way, I'm curious to learn and hear from him. Great, I can hear you now. And we'll talk later about your letter to the BoG as you referenced your action you want to take at the Special Prosecutor's Office. But I'm curious today, on the back of the protest, did you achieve your objective?
Yes, we did. We were out in our numbers to express our position. As you could see, it was well attended. We didn't, however, achieve our object of handing a petition to the governor of the central bank. We got there and we were asked to meet with the head of security and hand a petition to him. And we indicated to them that we are not willing to hand over our petition to the head of security. We did not come there to meet the head of security. We were there to meet the governor. And if the governor was not available, at least he has 2 deputies. So we expected that courtesy would require that he would at least make one of his deputies available to receive our petition. Since they were not there, we also refused to submit the petition, and we have plans to go back there, and then hopefully he will be there at that time and will present the petition.
The head of security who met you explained that the BoG governor and the 2 deputies were meeting the IMF. Isn't that good enough excuse?
I don't know if the IMF actually was meeting the BoG governor until about 3 or 4 o'clock when we were there. I'm not sure. And also, the BoG governor knew that Ghanaians were marching to the bank to come and present a petition to him. We are his employers. And so when we're coming there, he owes us a duty to be there. And he has 2 deputies. So if he had to meet the IMF, he could have delegated one of his deputies to be there to receive a parliamentary delegation. I'm talking about the entire minority giving indications that they are walking to the bank to give a petition. If you don't even regard us as individuals, consider that we represent half of the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. And so, assuming that even there was an IMF meeting, and I have my doubts if there was an IMF meeting, and I challenge him to disclose evidence that there was an IMF meeting. The bank, we're told, did not even, the workers did not come to work today. They shut the bank down. So it's not true that he was at an IMF meeting. I have my doubts. But be that as it may, we will go back and we'll present a petition to him.
Okay. Let's look at the real issues that triggered your protest. This whole, agitation started when we saw the loss that was of course disclosed in the BoG's own audited accounts of 60.8 billion cedis. You have held on to that as the evidence that he has failed in terms of his supervision of the bank and where the bank is currently, and so you want him to go. But he has a strong mitigation, does he not, because of COVID, which was an unprecedented global situation that left many central banks struggling and having to support their governments and being very overexposed. Isn't that enough justification, at least, to mitigate in mitigation for the central bank governor? Ms. Ayega?
Well, absolutely not. I'm saying that it is not the case. Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yes. I can.
Yeah, so clearly that is not the case. I mean, this whole argument about the global financial situation and then the COVID experience and the Russian-Ukraine war and etc., it's laughable because we have central banks in the sub-region. We have central banks in Africa, in Southern Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Uganda, South Africa. All these, are central banks, and they all lived through COVID-19. Apart from the massive looting of public funds in the name of COVID-19, I really don't see the real impact of COVID-19 on our finances. And so we're still, uncovering more, graft and looting of public funds under the cover of COVID-19. But COVID-19 just didn't happen in Ghana alone. And if you keep talking about Russia and Ukraine war, we all know the impact. It's the inflation in other countries in the sub-region are not what we have here. The depreciation of their currencies is not exactly what we're experiencing here. And all these are the factors that we are experiencing. And if you look at the extent of borrowing, I mean, you go around the sub-region and you go around Africa, and we shouldn't be comparing ourselves to the United Kingdom and etc. The structures of their economies are different. So clearly, these excuses don't really, serve the purpose. So we reject the explanations that the central bank governor is seeking to give. And indeed, we don't need to look far to get evidence of what has caused the situation that we find ourselves. Look at what they are doing about the construction of the new head office building. And that tells you exactly what has led us to where we are today. Reckless spending of public money. And we're not even talking about some other agents. We're talking about the central bank itself, using over $250 million to construct office space in the midst of all these suffering. So clearly, it is not these exogenous factors, these external factors that they keep citing every day. It is across the entire government that there is reckless spending, there is waste, there is massive looting and corruption. And at a certain point, the public purse cannot bear the level of looting and stealing that is taking place. And so they will have to go and then borrow and come and then loot and borrow and come and loot to a point where the international financial market is no longer even able to accommodate us when we come to borrow to loot. And we've jumped into the domestic market. And that is how come that the central bank is so overexposed to the central government. As you yourself have indicated, I was taking note of the statistics that you were presenting out there. Because, this government, has made many promises that are so unreasonable and reckless without regard to actually what is coming into government. And as a result of that, they are forced to impose so many taxes. You go to our ports, and then you are importing one item, and you have so many taxes and levies.
We have
that people now go pass through Ivory Coast and then find a way of getting the goods into the country because the taxes are just excessive.
Okay.
So all across the system, there is a
So stay with me. Stay with me. I want to stay.
The central bank failed to hold the line. They failed to hold the line.
Stay with me. Let me stay on those issues, and I want to bring in Nana Otue Champon now. Nana Otue Champon, examining the facts. Any sympathies for Dr. Ernest Addison on the back of today's protest? Mr. Otue Champon, if you can unmute for me. Okay.
Sorry.
Great.
I said it's not a question of sympathy for the governor, but it's rather looking at the facts. And the facts are clear. My understanding of today's protest stems from the 60.8 billion loss that Bank of Ghana incurred. Now, that 60.8 billion is an abnormal loss. It's not a normal loss in the sense that, yes, they made an income of 5.5 billion, expenditure of 66.3 billion, and a loss of 60.8 billion. Now, that 60.8 billion, 80% of that, which is 48 billion, related to the domestic debt exchange program, which was outside the control of the bank. It was a government initiative that to reach the IMF sustainability levels, they have to do this exchange, which was done. So if because of that, there's a protest, well, it's politicians, so I don't get into the politics. But the facts are clear that they did not make a normal loss of 60.8 billion. They made an abnormal loss. And the normal loss, if anything is to go by, is about 20%. So 60 to 20%. Should I call for demonstration? Fine, that is politics, and the Constitution gives that right, and I don't go in there. So let us stay with the facts rather than going outside the facts to argue otherwise. About the COVID and so on, they don't relate to this year's record, because we know that for the past 3 years, they had made profits. It's only this year that they made a loss because of the DDEP. So even in the light of COVID, they still show the profit. So with the greatest of respect, I think the Honorable should stay with the facts. And the facts are, the figures don't lie. The figures are there. The 60 billion didn't come because of any reckless spending or any, normal business activities. They were abnormal, and that is how I would state it.
You've talked about the fact that they've made profit even in COVID, and you're right. 2021, profit of 1.4 billion, and it takes full credit for that. If it takes full credit for what happened in 2021, certainly he must take full credit for what happened in 2022 with a 60.8 billion.
No, because this is the fact of accounting is whether you are doing normal accounting or abnormal accounting. Normal accounting, yes, occurred in 2020, 2021, they made a profit. But in 2022, there was abnormal activity. It's not every year that we've had DDEP. And go back to when we were born in 57. How many times have we had DDEP? 0. And therefore, what happened in the preceding years, 2022, were normal activities. Actually, I even sometimes wonder why they should be showing a profit or a loss, because theirs is income and expenditure. So it's excess of expenditure over income to give us that 60 billion. So we cannot compare what happened in 2022 with the DDEP to what happened in the prior years, where there was normal activities taking place.
Mr. Otue Champon, yes, 60.8 billion, you say, well, it's not a normal loss. Yes. However, many will admit, yes, the global economy was facing a challenge. There was COVID and there was Ukraine. But 60.8 billion, it's just jaw-dropping, way out of the exceptional circumstance and parameters that is permissible for the minority, indeed. They could tolerate in the region, say, of 10 billion maybe, but 60 billion. And to make matters worse, they've alleged that in doing so, in being overexposed to the government, he also didn't comply with the law. And that has complicated the situation for Mr. Ernest Addison. Even if you excuse the 60.8 billion with COVID and everything else happening, why didn't he do so by complying with the law?
Evans, I think we have to be clear on this issue. Their concern is about the 60 billion laws, which is a technical loss in the sense that DDP, what they did was to change the financial structure of the bonds. Once you change the financial structure, then by accounting standard IFRS 9, you have to make provision for the impairment, which is in layman's language, provision for a loss. Because if your original maturity date for a bond, and the bond is a loan, you grant it, and then it matures at a specified date. Now, if the bond was issued to mature in, say, 5 years' time, and because of exogenous circumstances, it's now maturing in 10 years' time, then it means you have changed the structure of that financial asset. And by IFRS, you have to make provision for that. So the 80% of the 60 billion was caused by that provision that was made under IFRS to ensure that there was compliance. So it's not something that will happen every year. And in fact, under normal circumstances, that loss reverses itself automatically in the next accounting period.
How?
So
How?
It's a technical loss. We have said it over and over again, but still, and gladly, the person leading the charge in the minority is a chartered accountant and is aware of this technicality, that it wasn't a normal activity loss, but it was an abnormal technical loss caused by the accounting standard. So
yes.
Why are we wasting so much of our time?
Except that there are laws that govern periods such as we experience. That says if you decide as a BoG governor that you will be overexposed to the tune of 60.8 billion to the government and borrow that heavily, you must comply with those laws. Thereto, he's found wanting, is he not?
No, Evans, you are confusing two things. It's the expenditure side, which is this zero financing that you've referred to. But this one is the setting your income against your expenditure, which is the accounting side.
Well, I'm referring to the general sins alleged of Ernest Addison, which includes the excessive exposure to the government, lending to the government without limitation, and not going to Parliament. That's a second leg of the sin that has been alleged against him.
Yeah, Evans, you stated yourself in the figures and statistics that you provided that zero financing by BoG occurred in 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2021.
Yeah.
It was in 2020 when we had COVID. You see, so what I'm trying to say is that don't let us confuse the financing side with the paper accounting that we have here. So that 60 billion has nothing to do with this financing issue.
But I get that, but I'm talking specifically about the zero financing challenge that we've seen, which what I'm just talking about, that overexposure. That's what I'm talking about now. Yes.
Now, that one, we have, you yourself provided the figures, that there was zero financing in 17, 18, 19, and 21. It was only in 2020 that there was no zero financing. Now,
also in 2022. Also in 2022.
Yeah, because of IMF, yeah. So the 2021, COVID is accepted. And, I mean, the legislators are there. They know what should have happened. Is it the Bank of Ghana which has to make the application or the Ministry of Finance? Bank of Ghana doesn't stand on this own. They stand under Ministry of Finance. So if they have a beef, then I would have thought that the gun should be directed at the Ministry of Finance, but not at Bank of Ghana, because they are under the ministry. So if they have to go to Parliament to seek any breach of the law as an exception, then it's the ministry which will do that, but not Bank of Ghana.
Mama,
that is my understanding, yes.
Mama, you're still with me. Mama, I want to go back to the facts as I laid out in my introduction. And this is the governor of the central bank who in 2019 supervised a profit situation for the bank of 1.6 billion. In 2020, again, a profit situation of 1.5 billion. In 2021, in the midst of COVID, when the entire global economy was struggling, still managed a 1.4 billion profit. So if you see in 2022 that he now recorded 60.8 billion, the point that Eto Champon is making is that clearly that is an outlier. This is somebody with a track record of performance. Even in the midst of crisis, economic crisis, he manages a 1.4 billion profit. Aren't you being simply unfair with him, judging him within a period of global upheaval in the economy, which really is the reason why we are where we are?
Well, I don't know if Mr. Otuo has read the Bank of Ghana Act. The Bank of Ghana Act imposes a responsibility on the central bank to be an advisor to the government on financial matters, fiscal matters, monetary policy. The central bank is supposed to be advising. Now, what he is telling me is that, or telling all of us, is that we should not hold the Bank of Ghana responsible for the financial mess that the Ministry of Finance has caused, which has overexposed the central bank. And then when the finance minister decided to do DDE, and then he willingly accepted and forfeited his monies in the process, he ran into that loss, and therefore we should not hold him accountable. That's clearly unacceptable. First and foremost, his failure in advising government not to create the financial mess that has ultimately affected the central bank itself is something that we should be holding him accountable for. And so far as we are concerned, the law says that he should come and inform Parliament. And I don't know where and in which law he's been told that the central bank is under the Minister of Finance. If you go to the Constitution, the central bank is not under the Minister of Finance. Central bank is an independent institution, given all the protection under the Constitution. And the law that we are dealing with, the Bank of Ghana Act, is very clear. It says that he should come and inform Parliament himself in a development like that. So in all respects, the central bank governor has violated the law. In every respect, he has been incompetent. In every respect, he has run a loss. Yes, in the past, he made profits, 1.5 billion, 1.4 billion.
Yeah.
Now, if you have been making profit of 1.4 billion, 1.5 billion, and then ultimately 1 year you lose 60 billion. I mean, totally undoing everything else that you have done. If you think that we should give you the...
But that should alert you to the extraordinary circumstances that prevailed in that year that accounted for that loss.
And who is responsible for the extraordinary circumstances?
No, the extraordinary circumstances.
Not part of the system that
extraordinary circumstances being COVID and then complicated by Ukraine that he had no control over.
And accounting standards.
It has nothing to do with COVID. It has nothing to do with Ukraine. It has everything to do with the finance minister over-borrowing and spending recklessly. And because he has over-borrowed and spent recklessly, he cannot go to the international financial market. He now goes to IMF for a bailout. And IMF says that you are too exposed because of the level of indebtedness. And unless you do something about your debt, I cannot help you.
But if it's about the finance minister,
They look for the easiest place to cut. And then they decide that what they owe the Bank of Ghana, that's the one that
they will forfeit.
But how do you blame
So
Ernest
this is not
Addison?
extraordinary
But how do you blame Ernest Addison
this
for
is the
this?
result of. We blame him because he's supposed to hold the line. He's not supposed to do that. If he has to do that, he has to come to Parliament for approval. He didn't do all that. And he's been printing money for them. So clearly, he's been colluding and collaborating with the finance minister to create the financial mess that we find ourselves in. So I'm surprised that he is talking about some extraordinary circumstances. Who created the extraordinary circumstances? Who created it? It's definitely not Ukraine, definitely not Russia, definitely not COVID. Like you indicated, even with Ukraine and Russia, he was making profit. So why did he yield to this situation where he will do the kind of thing that he has done, and then we have lost 60.8 billion? It's not acceptable. And indeed, like we said, we're not just holding the governor accountable for the financial mismanagement. We're looking at the conduct, the character, and the construction of the Bank of Ghana head office is an indication of the kind of behavior that has resulted in the financial mess, what you are calling extraordinary circumstances. It is the wastage and reckless spending across all sectors that people like him fail to pay attention to. The excessive borrowing that has resulted into we being, walked out of the international financial market. And then the finance minister came back and within the domestic market was recklessly borrowing. And this same central bank did nothing to stop them from the reckless borrowing, to a point where even the IMF said they could not help them unless they did something about the level of indebtedness. And you say that he's not accountable. Of course, the finance minister has his own level of accountability. But the central bank governor is equally accountable. And that's why we are going to hold him accountable. It doesn't mean that we will not turn our attention on the finance minister at the appropriate time.
Mr. Otuchampon, the central bank governor certainly should have held the line, even in the face of the challenges that the economy was facing. That's the point that he's making there.
Yeah, Evans, I also come back to draw the line there. I said there's a difference between what happened in 2022 per se and what happened in the prior years. In the 2022, 80% of the declared loss was caused by DDEP and the accompanying accounting standard. There's nothing the governor could have done about DDEP, nothing he could have done about non-compliance with the accounting standard. It states that if the underlying asset changes, then make a provision by impairment. So that was done. And it's not something you're going to do every year, only that 1 year. And going forward, you will not do it again. So I think confusing the two is merely confusing, or mixing the two confuses the public. Let us differentiate between the two, and let's give an understanding to the public that the accounts that they filed in 2022 had to comply with the international accounting standard. They didn't have a choice. And because there was a figure of domestic debt exchange program, which caused 80% of this 60 billion, there's nothing that they could have done. It's a different argument when it comes to the overborrowing that Honorable is referring to and so on. And that one, I'm not in the central bank, so he is the supervisor of the central bank. He can allude to that.
No, so but that point is important, is it not? That all adds up to the underperformance of the bank, which obviously has all contributed to the current economic conditions.
No, Evans. If 80% of your loss is attributable to one factor, and that factor is the DDEP, which for the accountants to comply, they had to make a provision. They could have said, okay, we are breaking the accounting standard. We are not going to make a provision. And no accountant where they are sold will also put their signature under, because accounts are to be prepared in accordance with international accounting standard. Ghana is a subscriber to that standard. So therefore, that if they had to make that provision. In fact, my argument with the accountants was that you could have stated that impairment on the DDEP as a separate line as an abnormal loss because it wasn't a normal loss. In that case, we have 20 billion as a normal loss, and then 20% as a normal loss, 80% as abnormal to get the 100%. And I think if that had been done, probably with respect again to honorable minority leader. Sorry, Ayaga is not minority leader. He's the MP for Boko. Probably they wouldn't have had their protest. But, sometimes you need to go out and have some fresh air. So I don't blame them for having the protest. But as far as their argument hinges on the 2022 account, I would say it's much ado about nothing because the loss declared there is a technical loss. It's not a normal loss, an abnormal loss, which will reverse itself in the next accounting period. But when they have a different case about what happened to borrowing and so on, and that one the central bank will have to answer together with Minister of Finance.
Yeah, Mr. Ayaga. Mr. Ayaga, I know you had an intervention. Okay, I may have lost him there. I want to take a quick break. When I return, Muhammad Ayaga had written to the central bank governor and had indicated in that letter to them that he was going to be taking a case to the special prosecutor. Has he filed that case yet? Detail of that after this.
Whiskey. Wash it. All of a sudden, my voice I hear different. And when you saw a call. Barman, bring me the honey whiskey. You know the one? Black Rock Whiskey. Honey whiskey. Shale, honey near their fro. Black Rock Whiskey is strong. Now so taste me is smooth. And it goes down easy. Excuse me. Barman. Bring my friend one Black Rock Whiskey.
Black Rock Whiskey, blended with natural honey flavor.
Hey, what's up?
Barman.
Hey, what the hell for Sikanton Sada?
Black Rock Whiskey, Tabby, the feeling smoothness, no.
Drink responsibly. Not for sale to persons under 18 years of age and not recommended for pregnant women. This advertisement has been vetted and approved by the FDA.
About 1/3 of a million people live with HIV in Ghana. Close to 10,000 of them die each year, mostly as a result of a lack of antiretroviral drugs and adherence. In fact, close to 57% of children under 14 years living with HIV do not receive antiretroviral drugs, again as a result of inadequate funds to provide them with medication.
Life expectancy for these children is grim. The big worry, close to 16,300 people are newly infected with HIV each year. With this alarming rate of HIV infections, all of us are in danger, and Ghana is headed for an epidemic explosion if nothing is done now to avert it. While the Ghana AIDS Commission is working hard to overturn the situation, the Commission urgently needs funding support from corporate Ghana and individuals to save lives. We're therefore appealing to you, corporate entities and individuals, to support the National HIV and AIDS Fund by dialing *9898# on MTN and Vodafone and follow the prompts, or pay into the National HIV and AIDS Fund account number 101-863-161-3233, Bank of Ghana. Your donation will be used to prevent new infections and provide care for people living with HIV, including children affected by AIDS. For further information, please call Ghana AIDS Commission on 0302 919260 or email info@ghanaids.gov.gh. Give to save a life today. Ghana AIDS Commission, partnering to eliminate HIV and AIDS.
And you're still live here on PM Express. On the day the minority, together with their friends and the leadership from the NDC, hit the streets. Indian numbers, hundreds stand up, and you've been seeing the footage on our screens. Check out our many social media handles as well, with the drone shots attempting to present a petition to the central bank governor demanding his resignation and that of his two deputies. They, of course, did not get that opportunity because they were met by the head of security at the central bank. But tonight, we're discussing, in essence, the real specific details that had triggered this demonstration that we've seen today, including the sins of the central bank governor as alleged by the minority. I want to bring in Mahama Yarega, who, of course, is the MP for Boku Central. We also have with us Nanotu Ichampo, who is a banking consultant. Mr. Yarega, you had written to the central bank governor, notifying him of your intention to file a complaint with the special prosecutor, and that hinged on the new building, the new BoG building, which you allege cost 250 million. I was curious when I saw that letter. Why were you writing to them when you could have simply gone to the special prosecutor?
Well, I mean, the letter I first wrote them a letter because they came up with the figures for the cost of the head office building. And if you recall, we kept getting different reports of different figures. We first were told that the contract was $121 million. Then subsequently, we found out that actually the central bank had approached the PPA and proposed a figure of $100 million. And then we also found out from other revelations that the PPA had initially told the central bank that they would give them approval, but at $81 million. And then now we saw that there was a variation of the cost of the project to $222 million. Now there's talk about it actually costing $250 million United States dollars. So I wrote to the governor of the central bank to find out what has accounted for the changes that we have seen in the price of this simple office building project. And the governor wrote back to me and said that, he could not give me the detailed information regarding the scope of works because he has said in his press briefing that the per square meter cost of the project is about $2,300 or something dollars per square meter. And so when you do the calculation, you see that there's no basis for we now having to pay $222 million, if that is the cost per square meter. So I actually wrote to the governor to ask him for some information. And the governor responded to me and said that for national security considerations, he is unable to provide me with the needed information for me to be able to do a proper assessment. On the basis of that, I thought that, well, if you will not give me the information that will enable me to assess and evaluate the way that you have arrived at your pricing, then, of course, I suspect that there's been some corruption, and therefore I am going to take the matter to the Office of Special Prosecutor. And so that is what I wrote to him yesterday to inform him. And so I'm now going to take the step of actually making a formal complaint to the Office of Special Prosecutor because the Office of Special Prosecutor has constitutional, a legal mandate, not a constitutional.
And you allege
procurement matters.
Yes, you allege that the cost of the building has been inflated.
Yes, because you see, the governor himself has told us that the cost per square meter is about $2,000, and then the initial size of the project was 73,000 square meters, and that cost them $121 million. Then, in his press briefing, he says that, now the project is about 100,000 square meters. So if it's about 100,000 square meters, and now you tell me that the project cost $222 million, dollars. So it doesn't make sense because from 73,000 square meters to about 107,000 square meters, you only have a 36%, increase in the scope of works, and yet the price jumps from 121 million to 222, which is about 84% increase in the price. So how is it that a 36% jump in the scope of works has resulted in 84% increase in the price?
Okay.
And I wrote to you to say, look, can you explain this to me? How did this happen? So the only way that you can explain this is to actually, use the scope of works. It is possible that you have some exceptional equipment that you have introduced into the project, which has nothing to do with square meters and etc. So explain.
Yeah. Okay.
And the governor tells me that he will not give me an explanation for national security consideration. I said, okay, well, if we go to the Office of Special Prosecutor, perhaps you will bring the explanation.
And so I just ran out of time. But so when are you submitting this complaint? Tomorrow?
I'm not sure if I will do that tomorrow, but I will definitely make a complaint. I have given him notice that I'm going to make a complaint. Maybe he will now write back to me and give me the information that I'm asking for to enable us arrive at a decision whether or not something untoward has happened. But with the information that I have now, unless he gives additional information, I'm left with no option but to conclude that the project price has been padded and there's some suspected corruption and corruption-related offense in the procurement, and therefore it's a matter that the Office of Special Prosecutor should look into.
Mama Yaga, thank you very much. He's MP for Boku Central. Nanote Champo, I'm grateful that you joined us with your thoughts on this matter as well. Enjoy the rest of your evening.